Do you see my screen? Manoj, do you see my screen?
Not yet. Hold on. Yeah, can see your
Oh,
screen.
okay, great. Well, thank you, Manoj, again for organizing this call. This really gives us another means to come together with this COVID-19 situation, right? So it's just in continuation for our Mountain House user group, right? So thanks again. Um, so the presentation around Agile today, right? I thought, I'll cover very basic, what Agile is. Like Manoj, you mentioned that, it's foundational, and I know there are other folks on the call who have been using Agile, in their software development uh, for some time. So for them, it could be a refresher, right? So with that said, so I always use this statement which Mark Benioff says, the business of business is improving the state of the world, right? And that's exactly what Salesforce.com is doing with this situation we are all dealing with, right? And he's putting all his resources. Like I think one of the attendees mentioned about work.com, and I have noted there in next slides that those are the things which makes a difference for all of us. So again, I will be just mentioning Salesforce Agile product. Someone mentioned another product, but Salesforce also came up with Agile Accelerator application per se, right, which is free. You can download from the App Exchange, right? So with that said, this is just another forward-looking statement which we are all familiar with it. The purchase decisions based upon features that are currently available. So it's a formality, right? So agenda again, like I said, it's a beginner, right? And these are the topics which we'll be going through, very high level. COVID-19, the challenge and the effort. What is Agile really and its advantages? Um, and the Scrum framework. There are multiple frameworks which we will look at it. Agile product management and what product development is, and then what tools we have out there that different organizations use. Again, agile work breakdown structure. It's very important when it comes to organizing the different artifacts or things like that in the tools which we are using. So I'll talk about that a little bit. And then again, agile charts and matrices. So again, COVID-19 challenge and efforts, Salesforce.com. So work.com, again, I haven't gone to that website in detail, but what I could figure it out that provides different organizations, companies to not only help with reopening their businesses, but also getting information around COVID-19. And also he donated, it seems, PP worth 25 million. So it's something to feel good about. So what is Agile and its advantages, right? So Sushil, you asked that with the COVID-19 situations, right? And, we do have daily stand-ups, face-to-face meetings, right? Which is, uh, suggested, right? But what my understanding is that what Agile really is a set of values and principles, right? So what that means is that as long as we follow those values and principles, how we practice Agile, that is really defined by those principles and values, right? And you know, Scrum Alliance, as part of a framework, have published those. You will see in the next slides, right? But just to simplify, I have put certain things on the boxes here, and I will go through this because that really helps for a beginner and for me also. Every time I see it and understand, it really clarifies the concepts further, right? So what agile really means is, you inspect and adapt, right? So we are not waiting on something to be done, right? In waterfall methodology, right? It's not sequential, right? So the sooner we inspect, sooner we check, right? We can find the problems and then we can change our course and then fix it, right? So inspect and adapt is really the basic for agile, right? And again, of course, it's iterative and incremental, right? Because we are doing in a small chunk. And again, it's flexibility, right? So flexibility in the sense, like for example, again, this is what I would think, right? We can't have face-to-face meetings right now, right, in person, but then we should be flexible enough to meet remotely, like what we are doing right now. So that is really essentially, you know, the values and the principles of getting things done, basically, right? However we do it, we need to be flexible. So that's what I think, uh, what it means to be agile, right? And of course it's collaborative because we want to be transparent, and we want to come together for a common goal, which is again writing an efficient working software, right? That's really the goal of agile, right? And again, we have all seen Google started a long time back, and other area companies, the beta concept, right? So beta, that really means is that let's create a small deliverables, meaningful bite size, right? And put it out for the customers feedback and see how they like it. Because customer is really uh, the real tester, I guess, right? Either they're going to use it or they're going to reject it, right? And again, we have all seen the business, this term market fast and fail fast, right? Which is again, pointing towards being agile. So again, we'll look at those set of values quickly. I will not go in detail. I provided the URL for anybody who wants to Google it. It's all there. So again, practices that support agile values and principles, right? So that any practice we do or what we do, right, how we develop a product or any task, if they are following those values, then we can call ourselves agile. Now, in the bottom over here, we have different frameworks, right, which really help us, uh, you know, follow those values and principles and enable us to do just that, right? So Scrum, Kanban, and there are other extreme programming and things like that. So, but today I will just talk about Scrum framework, right, and little bit of Kanban. Any questions so far?
Hey, if anyone have any questions, just post into chat. So maybe we'll catch up those at the end.
Yes.
And again, I'm gonna share all the slides and video
Okay.
recording after this meeting.
Right. So again, Agile Manifesto, and there are 12 principles which we will look at in the next slide. It's basically, all the points I talked about in the previous slide, but then this is a very formalized one. This is published by Agile Manifesto.org. So it's individual and interactions over processes and tools, right? So what really matters is that we interact with each other, we collaborate, right, internally as a team to come to a solution which really helps our customer or the business. Working software over complex documentation. So what really matters is that we all know this philosophy. That I'm not saying that do hard stuff first, but if we working with the product owner or the business side, right? If they say, okay, these are the features which could really help our customers who pay for our product and also the business, then add that feature first, right? So they define the priority. So it has to be working software, right? Customer collaboration, right? Get the customer feedback, get them involved in the process early on and iteratively. Responding to change, right? That leads talk about basically being flexible. right? Again, we will look at it, the sprint aspects of it. Once everything is committed in the sprint, we don't change that. We go back to the product backlog, but we have, as part of being agile, we will respond to the change, and it really helps because we are doing things in a small bite-size deliverables. So for us to respond to the change is much easier as opposed to waiting for 3 months and 6 months and then realize that okay, we need to fix something or add something, right? So that's the real just agile manifesto principles behind the agile manifesto. Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing because we talked in the earlier slide is all about working software, collaboration, flexibility. Those are the the summary of it. But if somebody wants, it's available to view it in detail. So this again, Agile Scrum framework at a glance. So as part of the framework for Agile, the Scrum, that's what something we will look at it. I'm sure folks who are using Scrum, they are familiar with it. Some of the most common is 2 weeks sprint cycle, and so I'll go through this quickly. It might be a refresher for someone, and people who don't know, it will be a good introduction. So basically, starting from the top, sorry, what happened here? From the top left corner here, inputs from customers, team, managers, and executives, right? So this whole area is basically part of, if you will look at it from a requirement gathering perspective, right? But again, the product owner, right? Product owner is really responsible for collecting the requirements from business and what customer need. Product owner. So if you look at quickly in the bottom left here, the roles, we have three roles under Scrum: product owner, development team, and Scrum master, right? So again, all these three roles work together in collaboration, but they each of them have their responsibilities, right? So product owner is really, I wouldn't call it, they are kind of business analysts, but they are the one who work with the business, like I said, and maintain a list of all the requirements, right? Depending on the level of the requirement, right? If it's a high level requirement at initiative level and then epic level, right? And the user stories. I will talk about those things in further slides. But the thing is that the product owner is the one who maintains that list, right? You see here, and they are the one who prioritize because they understand what is important for business and customers. So prioritize list of what is required, features, bug fixes, and things like that. Now that list is called product backlog, right? It's just another name for requirement document if we look at it from an old traditional way of project management. But product backlog is just a list of requirements, right, which are prioritized. Now, so product owner maintains the list, right? And then what happens is obviously they will have a product backlog planning meetings, right? They will meet at certain intervals and then go through the list and prioritize it. But after, the next step is the sprint planning meeting, right? So in that sprint planning meeting, the product owner is there, right? And the scrum master is there, and also the team members are there. The team members means the development team and the QA team, whoever is working to deliver that working software. They will all be there in the sprint planning meeting, and they will choose the items from the product backlog, and then they will basically say, okay, we can do this requirement or this user story in certain effort, right? So effort estimated is based on point system, right? Again, that translates to number of hours depending on the complexity, right? So the key here is this, that the team members who will be developing or working on that piece of code, right, or testing, they will choose what items or user stories they want to work on, and they put that into sprint backlog, right? And then again, there is a concept of velocity, sprint velocity, right? So basically, the sprint velocity, what that means is the number of story points, right? Story points is the qualifier for how much a particular user story would take, right? So the number of total story points, right, per sprint is the velocity, right? So the Scrum Master, based on the past history and everything, they will know, okay, a part of the estimation that how many stories we can take in one sprint cycle, right? So depending on the total number of user stories, based on how much they total up for the story points, they will decide how many user stories would should be in the sprint backlog. And again, it also depends on the resources on the team, right? The team resources. So with that said, the sprint backlog, the list is built, right? And then the sprint cycle starts, right? So usually what I've seen is it's a 2 week sprint cycle, right? And then so with that, after 2 weeks, they have to deliver what they promised, right? Obviously, we are flexible. Nothing is you know rock solid. Sometimes we do well, and sometimes we might lag behind, right? But all those things can be tracked, right? So after sprint backlog, the sprint starts, right? This is 1 to 4 week sprint, but 2 weeks sprint cycle starts like this. Okay. Now the next thing is once the sprint backlog is finalized, everybody knows what needs to be done, and all the team members take those user stories and commit to it. They will be working on it. They can further divide in task and subtask, right? Using different tools. We'll talk about it. So essentially, what happens is then the Scrum Master role become you know um, important in the sense that on a daily basis we want to track, right? What the progress is and things like that, right? So Scrum Master would have daily stand up. You see here daily stand up meetings. This is a time boxed event, right? It's a 15-minute usually, right? And again, we are flexible. You don't have to stand, you can sit down and all those things. The whole point is to come together, all the team members, so 15 minutes and talk about what was done yesterday, what anyone is working on today, and if there is any impediment on a roadblock, right? And then the Scrum Master will make a note of it, and in the daily stand-up meeting, what we do is we're not trying to solve the problems or trying to solve the impediments. We're just making a note of it, right? And then after the 15 minutes daily stand-up, we go on our way and then try to connect with each other, collaborate each other, and then make things happen, right? So that's the purpose of daily stand-up meeting, right? It happens every day for the next 2 weeks, right? And obviously anything whatever being worked on and changes, we recommend heavily that we make a note in whatever tool we are using, Zira or any other agile tool, so that the data would reflect for other team members to see what's happening. So after 2 weeks, right, the sprint review, right? Sprint review is really for the 2 week cycle, right? So what we do is it's essentially a demo of what work is done, basically, right? So we demo, we invite businesses, product owners, everybody there. It's usually for 1 hour, right? And QA team usually demos the product because they know from our test cases and things like that what feature needs to be delivered, right? So then in sprint review, we look at what work is completed, right? And we show off that, and then that's when the business decides, okay, this is something shippable, right? This is something we can move to the next to the release, right? So that's the really sprint review purpose of the sprint review meeting. Okay, it says finish work, right? The whole idea of agile, like we talked about, is that have you know completed software, but it should be working and efficient, right? Then next one is after the sprint review is sprint retrospective, right? So again, what we say is that in the sprint retrospective, we understand that nothing is perfect. We are flexible, right? We are collaborative. We are not pointing fingers to each other why something didn't work or failed. It's just that we want to recognize what worked well, what didn't work, and then what we need to change, right? So that we resolve going forward in the next iteration, right? So that's the purpose of sprint retrospective. And after that, whatever comes out, whatever didn't work, right, goes back to product backlog. So that completes the whole cycle, right? Again, in the bottom here, artifacts. We talked about roles, artifacts, and ceremonies. So these are all ceremonies, right? So artifacts are increment, product backlog, which is here, sprint backlog, which is here, right? And the ceremonies are sprint planning, right? We are planning for a sprint, right? Uh, Selecting the what work needs to be done in terms of user stories and things like that. The sprint review we talked about. uh, this whole thing is a sprint, 2 weeks sprint, right? Retrospect and daily stand up. So if you have any questions about this, I can answer. Please make a note, right? But this is the heart of sprint framework. It doesn't matter which tool we use, but if you are following the Scrum framework, then this is usually the uh, how it looks like. Uh,
Hey, I have a
Again, I thought,
hey.
go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question here. Like, so when you said like after demo and all, right? So retrospective is there. So here, like, if there is some unfinished work, for example, in the sprint, right? So people tend to move it to the next sprint. So that is something which we are seeing day to day.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
so how do you review that? Like, so is it due to we have taken more work, or how to tackle that side kind of situation? So yeah.
Yeah, no, very good question. So obviously, again, it's not exact science when we estimate certain user story, right? What needs to be done, but again, it's part of learning. So, for like you said, if something is unfinished or not at all touched, for example, right, then yeah, we'll say it's not done, and then it will move back to either the product backlog. Again, the product owner would define the priorities. Maybe the priority might have changed, right? So if we still feel that it's still high priority by product owner thinks of, then it will be put in this sprint backlog and then go into the next iteration. But again, the learning thing here is that part of the analysis of uh, burn down chart and burn up charts, those are the tools available, uh, which uh, can be drilled down in terms of further resource analysis, right? To find what was the reason why they were not uh, attempted, right, in terms of the work, right? And then reassess the whole planning aspects of it.
Yeah, thanks about that. Yeah. So
So
and
when that happens, the question on the same one, like whose responsibility it will be and when that will happen. Is it in retrospective or some other meeting?
So again, in the sprint review, right, that's when we look at what work is completed, what work is not done, right? That's when we will notify the product owner and the business, everybody see it, right? But then again, again, product owner is the one who would control that, right? With working with the Scrum Master and the rest of the team.
Okay.
In my experience, yes.
But the same team has decided that this will be done in that sprint, right? With all the experience and everything. So that means means in real life also it happens. So it moves to the next sprint.
Yes.
And it will again continue.
No, but again, we need to find out why, even though it was promised, right? And everybody decided that it can be done, but somehow it missed it, right? They couldn't attempt it, right? That's your question, right?
Right, so then, right. So that we cannot repeat that again, or how to improve it, right?
Yeah. So we need to find out, the root cause. Was there another user story which took place, or the resource left, or what really happened? Right.
That will happen in retrospective. That means.
Yes. So the discussion will be there, right? That what did not work, right? From that aspect, right? And that what did not work was that, hey, you had 2 user stories in this sprint and they were critical, I guess, and then why we didn't do it, right? So it's not more, like I said, it's not. It's just trying to find what was the challenge and see if we can address that challenge, whether it was to have more resources, or it was we didn't have proper information, or whatever the case may be, right? But again, I think the deciding factor would be on the product owner to again reassess the situation. Hey, we don't want to repeat the same situation again. Let's find out before we put into the next sprint backlog.
Yeah, most of the time there'll be challenges with the time, resources, how you're handling, how much spending, and the important factor is the what you're going to achieve for that, requirement perspective. So so I'll add one more question, and maybe we can talk about that later. So I'm seeing more questions coming on the chat. So
sure.
But yeah, keep coming.
Okay. So Agile product management, product development, and tools. I just put this slide just to differentiate what product management is. It's a common sense, we all know, but I just wanted to, from what Agile principles and the set of values they talk about, is that product management is responsible for managing customer and business needs, right? They are the one who prioritize, and product owner is part of that, essentially. Product development is, again, we as a developer and the QA team, right, the technical guys, and we all work on developing that piece of software. And then what they call is self-organizing. The product owner or product management is not going to direct how to do the development job per se, right? So they are all self-organizing. They are the one who understand what needs to be done. They are the one who's going to estimate the story points, and they are the one who will select the work from the product backlog, right? So that's the responsibility of product development team. Agile tools, again, I just put 3 names there. Salesforce Agile Accelerator, that's another, like I said, it's available on App Exchange. It's there, and I think I've seen some, blogs and, community space in Salesforce that they're planning to use that and even, integrate with other tools like Zira and things like that. But Agile Accelerator is the solution from Salesforce to do Agile. Atlassian Jira, we all know about it. It's heavily used in the industry, and it's a good software. Microsoft VSTS, Visual Studio Team Services. I haven't used this, to be honest with you, for a long time, but I think they call Team Services now, but it was all part of Visual Studio. It has a good Agile component. It integrates with GitHub and different things very well. So those are the three tools I just wanted to put out there. If anyone has experience on these three things, please do talk about. It's open.
I have a question. This is Priya. So, what advantage does the Salesforce Agile Accelerator have over the Atlassian Jira? And are you also going to cover the like how you estimate your effort in Jira in story points in this session?
Not today, but I will. I can log into Salesforce Agile Accelerator on my instance here. But again, it's not. I would say again, it's a good tool, but I think Zira is more mature, if I could say that, right? Um,
Okay.
in terms of different things you can do with it.
Okay. So, are you also covering the estimation part of it, the velocity of the sprint?
I can talk about it real quick. I didn't put it in the slide, but
So
I,
I have
I
one
can.
question that is a constant challenge that I face in every team that I've been working on, is estimating user story versus the subtask, right? So how do you
Yeah.
handle that?
So again, this it all starts with there are different way of estimating the work effort, right?
Yeah.
Some people, mostly people use story points, right? They are a Fibonacci sequence, or some people use t-shirt sizes like small, big, and things like that. So it's very flexible in terms of whatever practice we want to use, right? But I think looking at the
Let's
tools we have available.
Yeah, let's give
Go ahead.
one specific example. I mean, there are various ways to estimate it, right? Let's just take one specific example, Fibonacci series, okay? So here, let's say I am an owner of a user story, and there's a
Right.
certain number of story points that's assigned to that user story. Now I have some dependency and I create subtasks, and there are multiple assignees for those subtasks within that user story. So now how do you handle it? Do you assign story points to those subtasks? Because you can do either ways, right? You can either assign it to the subtask level or the user story level. So how do you handle that situation? How do you distribute that effort?
Yeah. So I think the best practice which I have seen and is recommended rather, is that to begin with, us have the story, user story, right, selected, or when we assign those points, those are manageable, right? When I say manageable, in the sense that they say it should not be more than 8 points, right? If you have 13 point, right, then it may have some risk there, right? So try to have story points in a smaller size, right? Because then, again, essentially what we are trying to do is we are trying to see that, okay, we have a clear understanding what needs to be done. This is the level of effort, and we can do it in 4 hours, right, or 2 hours, and depending on the translation, we assign those story points. Right now, if we have to do task and subtask within a user story, right, then like you said, we have more challenges to manage those. But again, everything rolls up, right? Because the subtasks will be part of task and the user story and epic and so on, right? So whatever user story, for the user story, the points we have decided, we have to work within that scope.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, there's no thumb rule to do this way or that way. It's up to
yeah,
how your like development process is defined. Like for example, my company, so it stays on user stories, and the tasks you can break up if there are multiple developers or same developer, different tasks, and that's again it's whatever the parent it derives there. We don't break up those individual tasks into individual effort or individual points or whatever it is. it's a whole story when you're gonna deliver it. Maybe 2 weeks time or 1 week's time, whatever it is, it will be part of that altogether.
Right,
So
right,
yeah, it really depends. I mean, if it's a real true product development, if you're really like um, rigorous product development, probably you need to define that in those levels. But it's more inclined with how the processes are defined for your whole development practices.
right. And actually, that was a very good question, because it's coincident that I have this piece shown on the screen is about how do you write a user story, right? And if user story is poorly written, right, then it will have a domino effect further down, right? So the better the user story is written, right, then the outcome will be that much easier, right, and efficient, right? So basically, as a role, I want to do something so that I can have this benefit, right? So it's really who, what, and why kind of scenario, right? So that's the best practice, and then it's standard of like defining a user story. And I think that working with the product owner helps.
Do
Okay,
you map these themes to the milestones?
say it again, I'm sorry.
Do you map these themes to the milestones?
Milestone, I'm not sure, I
Okay.
apologize.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
I mean, I know milestone from the other methodologies, but how it translates here, I'm not sure. Okay, so the next slide is again agile charts and metrics. There are multiple agile, or I shouldn't say agile, but charts and matrices, which are geared towards different roles in any organization, right? Starting from executive level, right, and then the product management, development, Scrum Master, right? They have different, because all the data is there, right? In Zira or Agile Accelerator or any other tool, right? We can run those reports and draw the charts, and it will tell us the information, picture words, 1,000 words, right? So, but over here in today's session, I just put three things here. There are many more out there, right? These three things I think I just wanted to talk about. Burn down, right? How again? So we are dealing with two different scenarios, right? One is the sprint, right, itself, and then multiple sprints within a release, right? So you can have the same charts for a sprint and the release also, right? But right now, the functionality is the same. Like for example, burn down, right? So what it says is how much work is remaining and the time remaining, right? So that what tells you on the x-axis days in the sprint, and then story points on the y, right? So that shows, um, you know, the burn down charts. If there is any deviation, it will tell us whether we are, lagging or doing well, things like that. Burn up, how much work is done, right? The time is spent, right? This particular block tells you about the release, but then again, if you see, they have different sprints there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But the same concept applies for the sprint also. We can draw the sprint burn up chart based on the story point versus the 2 week, right, schedule, and it will tell us that if anything is ahead of schedule, behind, or are we going to meet the target, right? And that really helps in the end when we doing sprint, essentially tracking on a daily basis, right? So that if somebody wants to do an adjustment, they can do that. I talked about velocity chart. Again, is just the total number of story points per sprint cycle. That's what the velocity is. So if you see, those two columns, right? On this chart, it says sprint 1, 2, and 3, right? Different sprint to sprint, right? It says that, okay, what was the expected velocity and how we performed, whether we exceeded the committed right work or we did not do. So those kind of things. So that really helps with the, learning for the future sprint planning, and also the estimation about resources, budget, and multiple different things, right? So that's those three things I wanted to just briefly mention. In terms of resources, if you Google Agile and all these things, there are tons of information out there, and they're pretty good. Nothing I said today is new. It's all known. But if somebody wants to learn more, can use these URLs and just simply Google it. It's all there. And again, one of the resources I would highly recommend. We are part of Salesforce ecosystems. It's Trailhead. They've done a wonderful job out there for any topic. So, that's about it, Manoj.
So, question: what does Salesforce use? Which agile methodology?
Yeah, that's what Anil was talking. So maybe Anil, you can talk more on that.
Yeah, sure. Actually, inside, I mean, business technology, we are using a tool called Gus, which has been developed within the force.com platform itself.
Yeah, they have their own in-house tool for. It's more like it's built on cloud platform, Salesforce cloud platform, but it's more like a Jira, but it's tuned for their own. I mean, maybe different teams might be using different products, but yeah.
No, I'm talking about the methodology. Is it Scrum or Kanban or what?
Yeah, it also depends on the team. So in our team, we are using, in coding side, we are using Scrum methodology, but different teams are using Kanban also. I'm aware of multiple teams using Kanban also, but our team is using Scrum methodology, 2 weeks sprint.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I'll take a pause. Thanks, Vinay, for putting this together and talking through all this agile methodology practices. So are you going to demonstrate or showcase anything on any system, or we just go through the question answer right now?
Let me see if I can launch the Salesforce Agile Accelerator a little bit so that some folks can have the view of it. We can continue with the question answer. Let me see, how do I go back there though? Let's see.
Yeah, you can stop presentation, you can open, and again you can present again. So I
You
guess
see my screen?
Yeah, we still see your slides.
Okay.
And we can see your other screen. So yeah, so you can see your browser too.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, while you're opening, so there was a question from Anil. I guess I don't know whether we answered that. Like, is there any hard rule or practice to not add or remove stories in the middle of the sprint?
Middle of the sprint, we don't do change anything because that's decided. It's only after the 2 weeks sprint cycle.
Okay, then. Okay.
But
so
what happens if a product? Sorry to interrupt. What happens if product owner insists? Then what should the team should do?
Yeah, if you, I mean, modify anything, it will affect your whole sprint planning, all the resources. So you need to adjust that if you want to add or remove. Maybe so you need to balance that.
Yeah, but actually, I see. I mean, couple of hours we keep as a buffer to handle this type of use cases. Whether we definitely, for example, if we need a particular story to be taken, like production bugs and all, right? So investigation on production issues. So that type, I think, due to that buffer, we'll be taking up that, and in the middle of the sprint as well.
No, but that is already planned in the sprint, right? Planning, which has been taking care of that. This is the question where suddenly as someone else, if something is added, whether it should be good practice or it can be added or not added. So
I mean, there's no thumb rule to don't do that. It's
Okay.
completely on the Scrum Master.
Scrum Master. Okay.
If they have buffer, that's good. I mean, they can utilize it. They don't have, then they have to balance the estimates so that they can meet the sprint. I mean, anytime you add something, it will affect the whole sprint. So you have to watch for that.
yes, yeah. So knowing that also, if people are adding it, so is it not we are going against the principle, or is there is no principle of not adding in between the sprint, right? Because that's what I also understood, that once you've done the sprint planning, that sprint is freeze for any new changes. But if someone wants to add because of business requirement or whatever, should not the PO should take that step and restrict that, or Scrum Master should not allow that?
Yeah,
Is there any guideline or nothing is there for anyone? It looks to me super agile then, right? Everyone is doing whatever they want.
yeah. In my experience in some projects, right? It, we as a developer, right? We tend to take up things. I mean, it's just our nature, right? Sometimes, but the product owner itself is the gatekeeper. What I have noticed, they will not let any scope creep or anything. I mean, if somebody has something needs to be dropped, that's fine. But they are the one who control the product backlog and beyond that through the sprint.
Yes, but the question is that if product owner only wants to add that, then there is no one in the team
Yeah.
have any say on that, right? We have to do it. It again comes to that point.
In my practice, we don't allow that. Yeah.
Yeah, ideally it should not. So I'm just saying that whether there is any principle or guidelines in Agile or somewhere written it like that, which maybe humans, right, tends to forget that.
Yeah. So no, so that reminds me of something. People do ask, what's the difference between a Scrum and Kanban, right? So by the nature, the Scrum framework, right, is like by definition, if you were to look at from the principles, is prescriptive, right? It's already time boxed, right, and it's already committed. So we have to go through that 2 week cycle, and then if something needs to come, they have to wait for it. But if, like, for example, I saw somewhere on Trailhead, especially for Kanban. Kanban is a swim lane kind of thing. It's not prescriptive. Like, you have to go through the time box events and the ceremonies. But so in Kanban framework, right? People can move things around. It's less restrictive. Actually, it's not prescriptive at all, right? So if there is an outage or something changes, right? And again, it needs to be decided in the beginning, right? And that really goes on type of the organization or the product we are developing. Like if it's a plain, I shouldn't say plain, but if it's a software development product, right, versus installing the infrastructure, right, creating a hosting center somewhere, right, because these agile principles can be applied to anything we do in life, right? So if we see that there are external forces that might jeopardize, and again, that pointing towards your question, if product owner wants to add something, right, then maybe this Scrum is not a good framework, right? But once it's decided that we have to do Scrum, then by principle we have to stick to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I think so. It should follow, because there are some guidelines which everyone needs to follow as a team, not only development team, basically.
Yeah, and practically speaking, every organization is different. I have had my own set of challenges. Playing agile coach role or Scrum Master, and then trying to balance the product owner role and what they want versus the development team. So your question is very practical and very valid. Things go all the time like that.
So, so Vinay,
Okay.
Kanban is actually release tied, right? So they'll be working towards the release, right? It's not about the 2 weeks work, right? Kanban is more towards the release oriented, right?
Yes, yes, because yeah, that's true, right? But again, release on a it's a combination of the iterative, right? Whatever is shippable product, we keep adding to the. Now we are getting into like release and CI/CD, that kind of DevOps scenarios, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Okay.
okay,
No, I mean, if you look at the release can be, if you look at Kanban view perspective, release can be your beta one candidate or RC one candidate. It's a final product. But when you uh, talk about small development, so you have your own milestones. I mean, there was a question before um, about milestones, how whether we create milestones in Agile, how do you correlate that? So usually a milestone is uh, used for I mean software development like a waterfall, those kind of methodologies. But in Agile world,
yeah,
like at the end of the sprint, what you're gonna achieve, that is your milestone. I mean, based on what you put into a sprint, you're gonna define that as your milestone. Maybe you're gonna finish one single feature, or maybe two single features, or maybe entire epic or whatever it is. So that basically correlates as a milestone. You don't have to create that, but you can correlate like that.
I would argue with that. Milestones are not sprint oriented. Milestones are enterprise level.
I mean, it
Sprint
depends.
is
That's
for the Scrum team, and the milestone is for the whole organization.
yeah. So I'm looking at as a Scrum master. So what milestones for if you want to keep it like I have a product which is going live maybe in 4 weeks time, 4 months time, and before that I have to release three betas, and I have to do RC1 and then final product. So you can define that, but I will not do that as a milestones, because I don't have to do that. So it's again how your whole processes are defined for your implementation or your standards. So again, I will go with that. Okay, so there was another question on burn ups and burn down chart. So I guess we covered in one of the slide. Do we have any more on that?
okay. That's it.
So Bhumi, do you got how the charts are correlated? How those measured, or do you want to know more on that?
No, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. There's one more. Yeah. So I guess how the user stories are measured. All those. I mean, we talk about the sizing and all the stuff, but um, if you Vinay can talk on how um, the story points and how they work with the user stories. If you explain a little bit on that, that will be, I mean, more helpful
Yeah,
for the
sure.
folks.
Yeah, so again, sizing the work effort, right? Story, user stories, like, right? So, like we were talking, different folks use different method of sizing it, right? So, let's see. So what I have done in my practice is, again, when we are doing the storyboard and trying to estimate the work effort, right? Again, you must have seen, all we all come together and then we look at the product backlog, right? I mean, it's that is done actually in a sprint planning meeting, right? So again, my formula is that. if something can be done in 30 minutes, then I say it's a one story point. And then if 1 hour is two story point, 2 hour four story point, and so on. So like I said, eight story point, that's maximum we think that we should go for, right? Which is 4 hour, right? But again, you can go up to 3 days, right? If somebody wants to looking at the size of this work. So, and once we define that story point, we log that, and then we work accordingly. Um, that's the sizing the user story itself, right? Um, but again, that is the basis for doing other estimations, right? In terms of resource planning and budgeting and things like that. That goes through the sprint cycle, what we decide in the beginning, and then also calculating the velocity. Yeah, does that answer what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, just wanted to others to know all those details so that yeah.
Mm.
Mm, okay, and there's one more question on. Do you have any details on elements of cloud tool for collaboration, uh, combining this agile whole methodology implementation? I guess. Uh, so Anil was talking about like their product is pretty much connected with Quip, so they can collaborate on that while they're working.
Right.
Um, what about others? I mean, do you have any, I mean, some experience or how people follow on those lines? Because Jira has their own, you follow on the ticket, not the like, um, yeah, it has own collaboration through the Confluence, through the their own um, activities on the tickets. But other than that, what do you suggest on this?
Yeah. Now, majority of the agile tools, they do have integrations with other tools, right? I mean, for example, I mean, we know about Jira. You mentioned Confluence and things like that. Like, for example, what I'm showing here, Agile Accelerator, right? This is the Salesforce product, right? It does help, tracking and recording user stories and things like that. But then again, it also integrates with Chatter tool and things like that. So in terms of collaboration, right? So these are just essentially communication tools. So whichever organization is using the main product, right, as a system of record, right, then there are multiple tools for collaboration. So,
Yeah, I mean, every tool has some way of collaboration.
yeah,
Yeah, because every artifacts needs to be attached, every communication needs to be follow on the same line.
right.
So this Agile Accelerator is a managed package within the Salesforce, or so?
Um,
So this is the tool you guys are using for tracking sprints, right? So that's what you said.
yeah. So I downloaded this from the App Exchange. I'm not honestly not much familiar with it. I was preparing for this session, so I wanted to reference this. In my practice, I use Zira a lot,
Okay.
but this is something you
Mm.
know
So this
Salesforce
is
is
exactly
using.
how the internal Salesforce tool also looks like. That's
Yes,
what.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It is internal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is okay for specific Salesforce project maybe.
Yeah.
But if you're like a whole IT, multiple teams, yeah, they will go with some different, uh, the company-wide tools.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's most of the questions. So again, um, there are lots of things like automation, CI/CD release, and then whenever all your codes, commits, and everything gets integrated. So that's all together DevOps stuff. We don't want to talk on those lines here. But again, with the Salesforce specifically, there are a lot of challenges if you're doing a development on the code level stuff compared to admin level stuff, and how to keep those together, different environments and a lot of stuff. So there are a lot to talk on releases. Maybe talk about that later in some other event. um, so yeah, again, thank you, Vinay, for walking us through all those your experience.
No,
So I
thank you,
guess
Manoj. Thank you.
yeah, so